Hello and welcome back to another deck walkthrough. This is for an Oracle deck that I've been meaning to do for about 2 or 3 months now and keep putting off because this is going to be a little bit more in depth possibly than some of my other reviews. We'll see when I get into it and like walkthroughs, because as this is an Oracle deck, I feel like there needs to be a little bit of some explanation of the cards. So let's get into this deck since we might be here for a little bit. This is the Embroidered Graveyard Oracle Deck, and here is the box. It also comes with this beautiful guidebook with the foiled edges that match the deck, full page art and descriptions, and then even some stuff in the back about like self-love and journaling and things like that. I also have some beautiful end papers on here. So this deck is created by the Embroidered Forest. I discovered them on Instagram. They have a Embroidered Forest tarot deck, which was their first deck, and I wasn't super interested in that, and I definitely have a bunch of tarot decks so far. Not as many as some people, but I definitely have a nice little collection going. But when they came out with an Oracle deck, and this is supposed to be a between life and death deck, I was interested. So let's get started. First of all, we have very Ouija-like imagery on here. We have a magnetic box that opens, and here is what the inside is. And then here are the cards. So that lovely foiling and foiling on the sides. So let's get into it. I will just go over sort of a couple of words for each card because I don't want to get into everything because I feel like that would be very long. So I haven't used this deck at all or shuffled it, so I'm not sure if these are going to be actually in any kind of order, so let's go. So these weren't actually in order even though I haven't used this deck yet, so I just went through and put them all in order so that I will have an easier time showing you these. The deck's obviously made to be shuffled. So the deck is broken into different sort of categories of cards, and each card will have different symbols on their corners, meaning that they're like slightly different, play a different role in the deck. For example, the first category is spell cards, and they've been created specifically to be used as a spell. The first card is Absolute Protection. Again, because this is a spell card, this is meant to be sort of used as a spell. It will go into in the guidebook how it can be sort of used as a spell, how it can be used for spirit communing, and how it can be used for introspection. So whichever way that you want to use this deck, there will be descriptions on how to use each card. For example, if you're using it for introspection, which I do think a lot of people will probably use this deck for, this is basically saying that you are divinely protected right now. I will probably only be reading the introspections on here because the other two sort of classifications of things are going to be slightly harder to go into in a video like this, and you really need to read the book for all of it, but just know that those are an option in here. And one of the reasons I got this deck was because it was so multifaceted. Here is Goodbye. This means you need to sever a connection or bad habit ASAP and with swift force. There's Familiar. This card asks you to assess your current place in the universe as you shift from each phase. And Abundant Intuition is asking you to set yourself free. Listen to your intuition. There's also Earthly Actions cards, which are signified by skulls. All these cards in this section want you to live big and boldly whilst you are here in the mortal plane. To deal with healing and feelings, actions, and inaction. Is Adventure. This is a card to reassure you that this is a journey that you want and need to take. You need to be brave enough to take that first step. Be Present. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Again, some Oracle cards are, which is good. This Cherish Me, giving very much Corpse Bride or Haunted Mansion vibes. This asks you in the mortal world to take a few moments to show your loved ones how you feel about them. Here is Sacred Rage, which is an amazing card. I actually have a piece of art that is similar to this, not from this artist, because you actually could buy all of these prints from the artist, because this was originally a Kickstarter deck, which I'll get into later, saying that your emotions are valid, they all need space, and don't bottle them up. And here is the Legacy card. This is talking about the wisdom that you hold inside you. Here we have Decadence, telling you to treat yourself. Again, what's fun about this, like for example, let me show you the Decadence page. So all of them kind of have a description of the card, how to work with them in a spirit communing type way, and then the introspection, and we'll even have little like, here's maybe something you should try. So again, this book, awesome. This is like worth getting the deck just for this. Here we have Self-Love, which again, working with some self-love energy. Here is Ether, again, art that I really enjoy. This card wants you to expand, embrace discomfort temporarily, get outside of the box, etc. Then we have Create, another one that is pretty self-explanatory. This is very much giving me Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas vibes. Here is Impervious. This is the reminder that you are a blazing phoenix rising from the ashes of your mistakes, constantly reinventing yourself and transmuting your mistakes into wisdom. Here we have Comforted. This card is about exploring the fear of death and what happens when we die. We have Truth Seeker. This is about finding the objective truth in everything. Then we have Release Tears, which is again, pretty self-explanatory. And we have home. And this is talking about potentially researching heritage, talking to your family of choice. We have vulnerable. This is about putting yourself out there. And we have animal companions. Those are signified by butterflies, which ask you to look at our fellow animals and beings that share this world as our siblings, respect them, care for them, and in return they may bestow upon us the knowledge they have gained from life spent in their bodies with their perspective. So we have transform, nice little death's head moths. We have rest, the little bear, the little hibernation. Don't let toxic productivity get you burnt out. We have dance with some morpho butterflies. What other people think about you is none of your business. Then we have sense with a nice little bat. This is more about becoming aware of the world around you. And we have overcome with a nice little snake. Look adversity in the face and say, bring it on. We have nourish with the harpy. Live deliciously with a ram and some moon phases. Again, more of a treat yourself. We have our song, featuring some nightingales. This one actually features a poem or a short story by Oscar Wilde. Kind of embodies this card. Then we have divine chaos with a dragon. This is surrendering to fate. We have star reader. This is seeking out answers via study, since we have an owl going on here. We have rainbreaker. This is not about going with the flow. We have perspective, elevating yourself to a different mental vibration. We have cunning with some foxes. This card speaks of the gritty kind of knowledge gained from experience, from being at our lowest and then triumphing. Knowledge earned through action. We have winter solstice. Asks us to make traditions that bring us light during our darkest times. About resiliency. We also have summer solstice. This is about celebrating the things that are good and acknowledging the big and little comforts of life. And we have goddess guides, which are crowns. Most of the deities are death and crone goddesses, and this is about guiding and teaching, about stepping through the veil and just working with those particular gods. First one we have is the witch. Within the introspection part, it's asking to manifest something new or different from ourselves, starting small. Give some tips for potentially doing that. And we have temptress with the siren. This is a little bit about choice and, again, tempting fate, kind of. Then we have rebel. And this is a depiction of Lilith. This is asking you to sort of shed your skin, shed guilt, because it has no purpose here. Then we have celebrate uniqueness. These are little fairies. This is letters to death, and this is depicted by Sheshat, who's an Egyptian goddess of wisdom, knowledge, and writing. And she is the mistress of the House of Books. And they actually talk about going through a ritual to write letters to dearly departed. Then we have beauty with Medusa. This is talking about where you limit yourself. And then we have Pathfinder with Hecate, and talking about feeling lost sometimes. We have Sanctuary with Arduina, who's the goddess of forests and sacred places. And there's a whole meditation in here. I also really love the art in this one. Love a Lunamoth. Then we have Weaver with Arachne, and this is about fighting with imposter syndrome. Then we have Balance with Demeter and Persephone, which is interesting. You don't really necessarily see them on cards together. And this is about letting others help us. Crow's Eye View with the Morrigan, having the strength to sever what must be severed. Love and Blood is Freya. She's both the goddess of love and fertility in spring, as well as a goddess of war. And this is talking about sensual pleasure of things. And then for Surrender, we have the Fates. This is again about letting go of control of your life. Also, we do have Binks joining me crying from outside the door because he wants to get let in. And then for Breath Between, we have Hail, who's the goddess of Niflheim in the Norse pantheon. And this is discussing shadow work and holding two opposing thoughts in the mind at the same time. Then we have Expression with Joan of Arc, letting self-expression fly free in the face of adversity. And the hearts are our dearly departed, and this contains familial archetypes. They represent the spirits of those who have passed, and they represent the very real archetypal energy within us all. We have the little ones, which is all the little pets. Speaking of, that's the boy that was crying. Then we have Companion, which is again an archetype of pets. This is specifically the archetype of cats. Then we have Faithful, for obviously the archetype of dogs and unconditional love. Pinky Swears for the archetype of friendship. I'm so sorry if you can hear him crying. I had to just stick him out of the room until we finish this. I hope you don't mind the noise. And this can be a little bit about hardship in friendships and like working through that, as that is temporary. And here is They, Them. And this is about failing to fit in a box or label, and instead releasing guilt and proceeding with unconditional love and acceptance. Then we have Innocence around infant death. And this does talk about your inner child and listening to your inner child. The author of the deck does recommend, if you do find the subject triggering or too saddening, to remove this card from the deck or paperclip those pages together. Again, there's so much more than just the introspection and reading it that way. Like I said, there's a lot of other stuff in this book as well. Then we have Twins, very much giving The Shining. This is talking about where people will become increasingly polarized and potentially letting your guard down and embracing initial discomfort. And we have Brother, the boundless energy of the brother archetype, asks us to be more free and willing to go on an adventure. And we also have the sister archetype. This is the sweetness of the sister archetype. This world can be a harsh place, and we so often armor up mentally, but when you feel safe and secure, take the armor off and allow yourself to just be. We have lovers. This is actually talking about you being your own worst critic and not being as harsh on yourself, and instead talking to yourself the way you would talk to a lover. Then we have the mother archetype of asking us to care for ourselves and being responsible for parenting ourselves as adults. Then for father, we have an archetype of force, grit, and hustle. And we have grandma. This is the ability to be deeply intuitive and understand your emotions and mind on a deep level. Then we have grandpa, and this is not putting too much pressure on yourselves to be perfect, and instead possibly focus on a mastery of your craft as a moment of joy, finding joy in the action itself. And we have ancestors. Just again, looking at our time on the planet as being short, and memories of others in our hearts. The next few cards are actually the Kickstarter first edition deck cards. I don't think they're going to necessarily be in the whole deck, but I still want to show you because I got these since I got that from Kickstarter. We have Community. And this is really the artist's thank you to the community of Kickstarter for making this deck successful. But this is also talking about leaning on your community to be safe and supported. Then we have Spring Equinox. This goes with the solstice cards. And they're saying that this is the card that would be considered like the Fool within tarot. So this is the hatchling in spring, trying something new, start of something. Then we have Fall Equinox. And this talks about traversing the mental landscape, the internal landscape, after the really busy months of spring and summer. And lastly, we have Samhain, which honestly makes sense for this. It's an invitation to cast your most powerful magic. All right, so that is it for this deck. Like I said, I really encourage you to check out the artist's Instagram and things to get some more information about it. This is a deck that's a combination of using it as an actual oracle deck, using it as a spell deck, using it for inspiration for different things, using it for communing with spirits, whatever. It's a between life and death deck, and that is why I got it, because I think this is so unique compared to other oracle decks. So I'm very much looking forward to using this, particularly in the dark half of the year, but just in general for shadow work and journaling and things like that. I find it very interesting. So comment down below, let me know if you're going to be picking up this deck, or if you have any similar decks that kind of have multiple, I don't know, things to them, can be used a bunch of different ways. I mean, I know tarot is like that in general, but if you have any other decks that are more specifically like that, like this, definitely let me know, because I do think it's very interesting. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.